Hey, who can behind their backs?
Yeah, I think she used
No, I usually do this.
Well,
Not tomorrow. No, I'm gonna get back to the lab tonight. Surprise! That's what we're talking about today.
That's great.
All right, well, ladies, let's go ahead and get started. Tina, thank you so much. Thanks so much. You know, after you spoke, I was like, I am just feeling a sense of peace right now. You know, just like, just a peaceful woman. So I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, so I'm closing this out today. I'm going to be talking to you about how to gracefully come out as a Christian business woman. So how many of you would consider yourselves a woman of faith? Okay, all right. Some of you may be like, no, that's not cool. I was traumatized as a child by church experiences. I mean, I was, honestly, and I'm going to tell you about it while we're here today. But, you know, when I just have to give a little bit of background on when I was thinking about this speaking engagement, because my original title was How to Come Out as a Christian Businesswoman. I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. It sounds good. And so when I put it on the website, oh, I got some feedback. Like I had some that were like, they're like, coming out, what does that mean? So I said, you know what? I need to make sure that no matter what, I am showing up with grace. And so I felt like it was critical to add that word gracefully, because not everybody, you know, not everybody is familiar with that world. Some people, like I said, have even been traumatized by religion and all of that. And so, you know, coming out as gracefully as a Christian businesswoman, it's something that I've learned. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'll share some of those with you. And I've learned how to just do this right, to do it in a way where you don't leave anybody out, because that's really important to me, that people are not feeling left out. I don't want people to feel like there's a better than mindset, because that is absolutely not true. Anybody who walks as a Christian knows that you actually have to put yourself last in line. And that's just the truth. You know, anybody we have to be a servant of all is what I've learned. And so I've really tried to do that. So what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes is I want to define what I mean coming out. What does that mean from my perspective? I want to share with you some business realizations I had as I was going through this journey, and I'm going to share some graceful revelations that I want to leave with you. For those of you, especially that are faith-based women, and you're out there in business and you're connecting with other people, no matter what they're coming from, no matter where they're coming from or what their belief system is. And so what do we mean coming out? Well, you know, I always have to figure out, well, what do we mean? You know, what's the why? I'm always thinking of that. And so I looked up in the dictionary, well, what does it mean coming out? Let's just start there. So when I looked up the definition, it said to declare oneself, especially in public, to debut an utterance, to openly declare something about oneself that was previously kept hidden. And I just started meditating on that, thinking, what does that really look like? You know, what does that look like? And so I was saying, come out. And, you know, I was just reminded of something that happened to me when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Does anybody remember? You remember your life at that age? It's crazy, but I remember more clearly then than I remember what happened last week. Well, so when I think I was probably 3 and a half. but I was 3.5, and I got up one morning, it's probably about 8:30 or 9. My mom was a late sleeper, but she didn't get out of the bed until like 11 o'clock, and I'd just be wandering around doing whatever. Well, I had a black trunk in my bedroom, and it had toys in it. I had thrown out all of the toys, and I just said, I'm gonna get in this thing. So I get in that trunk, I'm getting down in there, and kind of like this. And so anyway, I get all the way down. Guess what happened? The lid came over the top of me, and it just happened to have a latch, and that latch went. So here I am in the trunk, 3.5 years old. It was pitch black. Oh my Lord, I was so scared. I was frightened. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, if a 3.5-year-old can think about, I can't breathe, I don't know that I was able to really articulate it that way, but I felt like I was smothering in there. And you know what came to mind? I was debating and asking myself, well, should I bang on the top of this and wake up my mom, who was probably going to beat the living daylights out of me for waking her up? That was my dilemma. So of course, I mean, eventually I just got too scared, and I was like, okay, I gotta come out. So I banged, still hoping miraculously that the latch would just come undone and it pop open. Of course, that didn't happen. My mom came in, she lifted up the lid. What are you doing? You woke me up. And I'm sorry, Mom, and I cried and everything, but boy, I was so relieved to get out of that trunk, to come out of that trunk. So if you can just even picture that situation and fast forward it to now, that is the dilemma that I had as a businesswoman. You see, I mean, I was having that dilemma. You go and you work in the corporate world, and it's very separate, and I spent a long time in the corporate world, and they keep everything separate. It's very private. You don't talk about it, but it's kind of like, if you have faith, it's a part of you. It's in there. So not expressing that is like saying, well, I'm sorry, I can't show you my arm because it's private. So just ignore this, over here. Just ignore this arm over here. It doesn't exist. Well, we know that doesn't make sense, right? So when I think about that trunk opening, and I think about coming out gracefully as a Christian businesswoman, I had to be true to myself. And being true to myself meant that I could freely express my authenticity. I operate in freedom, which is one of my top values. And I'm also operating in truth. And those are very, very important aspects that you just can't hide behind your back. So coming out equals stepping into your calling. Now I want that to sink in for just a moment here. Coming out equals stepping into your calling. See, when you come out of that trunk, you come out of that black chest that's kept you trapped, that means you're making a conscious effort to step out and declare that you are walking in the calling that you were designed to walk in. And that's a big realization that I had. Well, I had some other business realizations, and I had to share something about my journey because I want you to see the whole picture here. Well, who in here loved going to church when you were a kid? Some people, not many. Well, let me tell you, I hated going to church. I hated it. I didn't, I felt like I had nothing in common. I felt like those people were judging me. I mean, they were. I mean, I was a troublemaker. I mean, honestly, I was an angry kid. I spent some time in foster care. I was a runaway. I mean, there were bad things that happened, but ultimately, I was a rebel. And so to take me into church was and feeling the judgment around me, I hated that. And so that continued, and I just jumped out of the fire into the fire, or let's see.
Out of the fire into the frying.
Thank you, Amanda Gleason, my presentation assistant. So I just jumped into worse situations. Even as a 17-year-old, I was made an emancipated minor from the state of Indiana. So I got out of foster care and I got a bag of clothes. I hitchhiked down to Alabama and started my life all over. And married a drug addict. Everybody runs out and does that, right? Ran out, married a drug addict, had a couple of children, went through some really challenging things and realized, oh my gosh, I've got a couple of kids. I need to put myself through college because obviously I'm going to be taking care of these kids, so I got to do something. So through much tribulation, I managed to get my undergraduate degree. And like 2 weeks later, after that, crazy thing happened. I'm kind of thankful about this. I'm kind of thankful that I got through this, and I think God helped me do this. So I went to this little Baptist church down the road. I like to say often that it was deader than a doornail. I went in there, everybody else was like 50 times older than I was. And I walked in there, the service was nothing remarkable at all. And then the graceful little old lady's at the keyboard, piano, and she's playing I Surrender All, and all of a sudden something happened and I got zapped by God. So what I'm telling you is I didn't choose him, he chose me. And he talked to me in that moment. And I realized something happened. In that moment, I had a road to Damascus experience. I could not deny it. I mean, there was no denying what happened. Everything just was wiped away. All of the stress, all of the pain, all of it was just wiped away in just one day. And for 3 weeks, I didn't even talk. I didn't even talk. I had nothing to say. There were no smart remarks, no cynicism. No, well, none of that. That was all gone for me. And so I'm going to fast forward because there was a lot that happened in between that and corporate career. But one day I wake up, I'm in corporate America, working, trying to just be successful in corporate America, had worked my way up the ladder, was a high performer, was running all over the world for my companies that I work for. And my last couple of years in corporate, I was part of a senior leadership team of all women. It was a very dysfunctional experience. It was a very dysfunctional team. They were all just, they were drinking their problems away. I got caught up with them. I was there right with them, just trying to keep up with them. It was a challenging situation. And, I just woke up one day and said, this is not the life. This is not what I'm being called to. This is not the life that I really wanted. And, so I ended up, that corporate chaos was like the springboard for me to start my business. And it's exactly where God was leading me. He was letting me know, I've got other plans for you. And so I took that springboard and jumped into business ownership. And here's the thing about business ownership. How many of us are business owners? Yeah, okay, most of us are. Well, you know that when you jump from corporate to business ownership, you live happily ever after, right? Yeah, well, so I started my business and that high performer showed up. I was kicking butt and taking names, but, and it was all great from a profitability standpoint, but my life was falling apart. My life was falling apart because I believed that I could do everything. I was believing that I could do it all myself. And I believed this lie that we hear all the time. You know, we hear this thing that says, you're enough. You're enough. You can do it all. You know what I found out? I was God humbled me. He said, no, you're not enough without me. And that's where I realized I was missing a big portion of the equation. See, you can only go so far on your own. And then there's something that happens where you get stuck in the wilderness of work, where you're so busy, you're just trying to survive. You're trying to prove yourself in the wilderness of work. And then you're reaching for oh, I could have everything. I want total fulfillment. I'm going to have everything that I ever wanted. I'm going to have that swimming pool in the backyard, and that's going to be my symbol that I've made it. Yeah, well, that's a big fat lie. Yeah, I found that out. And so I want to share with you some revelations. I want to spend a little bit of time here, not much, because I know that we're running out of time very quickly. So when you finally come to the place where you've come to your end and you realize that it's not by might, it's not by power, but it's by his spirit. When you finally get that revelation, then you realize, okay, I got to have some self-awareness. That is the first place to start. When you are coming out gracefully as a Christian businesswoman, you need to put away your, hey, you're going to hell if you don't change your ways t-shirt.
Right. Yes.
That needs to just be thrown away. This is the person that you got, not me, Angie, Nuttle. I mean, but you know, you can do this to yourself. But this is the person that you've got to look at. And this is where the cleanup has to happen. And you got to do something that I call, you know, walking the balance beam. And when I say the balance beam, you got to quit trying to focus on the splinter in everybody else's eye and look at the beam in your own eye. Okay, where do I need to, you know, where do I need to get myself together? Where do I need to bring myself into subjection? What is it that I'm doing that I just need to, you know, bring to the feet of the Lord? And so this is important because I spent a lot of time, I spent most of my time working on this piece. I still work on it. I spend more time just bringing myself into subjection and working on my mindset, working on, okay, I got to recognize that, you know, it's not that person, you know, that it's not that person. We know that there's a spiritual battle going on. And that's where I have to take the fight.
True, yeah.
Right?
Amen.
We're here to demonstrate love. And by the way, you know, one of the other things that I had to realize is that your business is not about you when you are a Christian businesswoman. It's not about you anymore. It's about him. And boy, it sure is hard to let go of that CEO position in your own business, right? But you're not actually the CEO when you're a Christian businesswoman. He is. He's the CEO, COO, CFO, CTO, CHRO. Right. So self-awareness is also not minimizing who you are in order to fit. You know, that we're not being, for those of you that are familiar with the story of Peter when Jesus was being crucified, you know, I mean, you're like, I have no idea who he is. See, we have to step into that. Yeah, I know him, but I'm not going to take a religious baseball bat and hit anybody over the head. Right. Yeah. Our job is to love the people, to demonstrate that love toward people. So the other thing, we got to watch our mouths. We have to be mindful of what's coming out of our mouths, not just working on our mindset, but I'm going to tell you something very practical. And that is, we got to clean up our social media. The other day, this is so funny, but sad at the same time, but I was looking at social media and there's this show, The Chosen. How many of you have watched The Chosen? A few of you. Well, The Chosen is this fictional show that has, takes off of, parts of the Bible, and they take some liberties with it to say, hey, I wonder, if this, just imagine if this is what had actually happened. And so it creates this story. And so they have this whole Facebook group and they have these social media posts, and people who are Christians are coming in there and they're getting into fights about this. I'm like, whoa, what, that's not, that's not where we need to be. So, I mean, one of the most practical ways that you can just demonstrate that spiritual awareness is to just be mindful of what you're doing on social media. Are you saying that you're a Christian businesswoman, but you're not living that way? People see right through that and know that you're not being authentic. So, second revelation to just get a hold of is to recognize God's truth. And that means recognizing his truth in your own life. His word means something. And what his truth says is that your gift is going to make room for you. It's going to bring you before great audiences. And so we worry so much. Yeah. We worry about where our money's going to come from. We worry about, oh, am I going to be provided for? And bringing in God's truth is like saying, hey, do not worry, do not fear. Hey, I feed the sparrows. You think I'm going to forget about you? Those birds, they're not even working for it. Right? That's Angie Nuttle's interpretation of that. Yeah, but he's telling us it's now about the mission. It's the mission first, and the money will follow. That's just all there is to it. And this is one of the most valuable truths we can grab a hold of. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You see, you have a weapon right here. This thing right here can slash people up, or it can bring life to them. And so recognizing that truth and putting that truth into practice before you ever speak anything, this is a good measure to say, is what I'm saying, is it bringing death or is it bringing life to people? I don't know about you, but I want to bring life to people. And so I'm going to work very hard to make sure that that's what happens, that's coming out of this mouth. Right. And then the other thing is giving others grace, love, and truth. Yeah. This one is so important. And I wrote down a comment to be reminded of, that I was just in some prayer time and thinking about, we as Christian businesswomen, our goal is to be conversational versus controversial. And so that is, it's easier said than done to do that, but our goal is to draw people, not to beat them over the head or judge anyone or, just cause anyone to be just like that rebellious teenager that I was, who, just hated, just even being associated. And I recognize this truth as well, but, not everyone is going to be your target audience. There are people who they're going to excuse themselves from the conversation. That's not your target audience. If they're not ready, or if they're never ready. We have to be representing God, and that's it. So in terms of being a Christian businesswoman and being graceful about it, I just wanted to share those tidbits with you. It's not a fancy speaking engagement here. I really just wanted to speak my heart. And I was thinking about, so I've written 3 books, and I'm going to show you these books because I just realized that these are a really good example of the evolution that I've gone through myself. So when I wrote this book, From Invisible to Incredible, it was very corporate focused. It was designed to help people learn executive presence. Well, in this book, my Christianity, it was probably represented, 5% of the book. So in 2017, I wrote this book, and I would say, okay, it's about 40%. It's up there, 40% Christian. But I finally got the God memo. This is 100%. And I just want you all to know that you may be saying, why are you talking about this? What's important about this? And what's important to me about this is that I am tired of seeing beautiful, smart women being beat down by the enemy so that they're not able to answer their calling. I am sick of that. Amen. And that is the reason why I do what I do. That is the reason why this VIP center exists, because every single one of you are visions in progress. Every single one of you. And as long as you're hanging out with me, I am going to do everything in God's power to ensure that you get to where you're supposed to go. I'm going to do whatever it takes to inspire and encourage you. And I'm going to do that in a way where you feel loved, you feel seen, you feel heard, and you recognize that I'm not the source, God is. So thank you so much for your time. You can get on my A list if you're not already at angienuttle.com. Our next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do another, we'll do the 30-minute hot